always used to lay you clean up the messes. Down on my knees, thought I couldn't stand up on my own. Turns out sometimes you're stronger alone.
In part one of our discussion of gaslighting, we talked about what gaslighting is in general, and we talked about what the effects of gaslighting look like on a person that has been subjected to it. In part two, we talked about how a person that is gaslighting you will deny the reality of whatever happened in order to cause doubt in your own mind as to whether or not you can trust what you've seen and heard. But today we're going to look at one of the most damaging aspects of gaslighting that we all faced as Jehovah's Witnesses. Remember, the purpose of gaslighting is to get you to doubt yourself so that somebody else is the person that you look to for answers. He or she with the power is the one that creates your reality. They become your reality check, and you become detached from your own thoughts and feelings, replacing your own thoughts and feelings with the thoughts and feelings that are provided to you. As we talk about this and how it was used by the cult, again, remember that these things were often seen in our families of origin as well. These hallmarks might be seen in your mom, your dad, your siblings, friends, partners, workmates, etc. And you may actually find that you employ some of these hallmarks yourself, whether against others, but maybe more notably internally against yourself, causing self-doubt. Hallmark number 2. A person that is gaslighting you will use what is near and dear to you as ammunition against you, weaponizing the very things that you care about. Now let's see. Is there anything that Jehovah's Witnesses weaponize against you that you care about? Maybe something that they recently weaponized against the entire exjw community, as the governing body basically threw a Molotov cocktail into the community and set everyone on fire. Oh yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses will weaponize your family and your relationships against you. When you're a child, it's often the withdrawal of love from parents when you do something maybe out of the bounds of JW life, and they treat you like an object to be fixed instead of an actual human child. As you get older, the threat of shunning looms like the blade of a guillotine, hanging over your head as you lay waiting for one day that blade will fall on your head and sever you and your relationship from them. If you stray from the prescribed path that you likely never chose, then you can feel the withdrawal in the form of being reproved in the congregation and then having disappointed family, or the ultimate penalty, the emotional extortion of having your entire family withdraw from you through their extreme shunning practices. Then those family members that shun you the other 99% of the time can reach out whenever they want something, or whenever something awful has happened and someone has died or has cancer, or maybe they need help in their old age, often financially. And they can use the facade of necessary family business to remind you that they exist and to prey on your emotions in vulnerable times. And recently, on March 15th, through the governing body update number 2, Jehovah's Witnesses were encouraged to prey on your emotions yet again, to reach out to you only if they are preying on those emotions and inviting you to a kingdom hall. Or they can prey on your emotions and you can actually hear their voice again through the form of a basic greeting, and only a basic greeting, if you return in the 4 walls of the Kingdom Hall to one of their meetings. Did you get people in your life sending you texts or other messages letting you know how much they love you, followed by an invitation to a cult meeting? That's not love. That's gaslighting. That's them trying to use your normal human emotions against you, to pull at your heartstrings, to try to get you to be someone you're not, so that they can have you back with them, even if it's not best for you. They want what they want, and they will weaponize anything they can to get it, even your relationship. Although this is one of the most obvious ways that we were manipulated by people that used what we care about against us, that's far from the only thing. How many times did you read from a cult publication, or maybe you heard it from the platform, that the heart is treacherous, who can know it? Or maybe that you shouldn't lean upon your own understanding. They specifically chose scriptures or parts of them to fit what they wanted to convey. And what they wanted to convey is that you cannot trust you. You can't trust yourself. You can't trust your wicked heart, your feelings. And you can't trust your wicked understanding or your own thoughts. Rather, it is their thoughts that you should listen to, and they will tell you how you should feel about things. Remember, as that recent governing body update said, it is the governing body that is deciding things. They don't even pretend it's Jehovah anymore. You can't trust yourself? You should trust some delusional old men in New York. To add to the cherry picked admonition of the verses where they take those texts, how many times are we told that you should put on the new personality? They were basically telling us that they wanted to change us. They called their shot. They expected us to change who we were. We didn't see it. Then they even took it further, using scriptures that say that it doesn't belong to man who is walking, even to direct his own step, trying to make us feel like we mere mortals don't even deserve autonomy. Of course, then we were told our whole lives to follow a select group of men who were indeed directing our steps. Ironic, isn't it? What happened if you were a kid that maybe had a natural talent or gift for music, sports? Maybe you were great educationally, maybe you excelled in school. What if you wanted to pursue those natural talents, to develop them, to play in the band at school, or play on the basketball team, or pursue some sort of educational club or even university? Were you just told, no, you can't do that? Or were you told, no, you can't do that? And then you were shamed for even wanting to do such a thing? What's wrong with you? Don't you want to serve Jehovah? Why would you spend time with outsiders pursuing something that doesn't even matter? Now, obviously, there were some Jehovah's Witnesses that made allowances for their kids to pursue something. But anecdotally, when that happened in most of the stories that I've heard, it was really because that parent had an interest in the thing, so they allowed it. It's hard to shame your kid for wanting something that you yourself want too. But in most cases, when little parts of you started to sprout, those seedlings were crushed to make sure that you didn't start to rise up. Even your gender could be used against you, right? Trigger warning for you ladies, but how many times did you hear that as a woman you were the weaker vessel? How many talks in the Kingdom Hall discussing the role of women pointed to some 1950s version of what a woman should be, there with dinner ready on the table when your husband came home, being a support to your husband because he was the head of the family, rendering to him his due? I could go on and on here, but how sad that little girls grow up hoping that the best thing they can achieve is to get their identity from a man that they marry, especially if you could be an elder's wife, right? They tried to disempower you. Certainly, there were also aspects of what it was to be male that were antiquated, and often the examples given to young men did them no favors either, but it was obvious what they did to young girls and women. Going back to that governing body update announcement from March 15th of 2024 that I alluded to earlier, what were the two big announcements at the end? First, grown women were told that they were now allowed to wear pants. Second, grown men were told that they no longer have to wear ties or blazers in most circumstances. And just a few months ago, men were told that they could now have beards. This cuts to another way that what is near and dear to us was used against us. The way we dress and groom ourselves is an expression of who we are. They put prisoners in the same uniforms and shave their heads to take away their individuality, giving them a number. We were given a uniform as well, told how we should dress ourselves, how we should grow or not grow facial hair, how women should style their hair too. You don't even have to have strict rules around it to create a culture of what is and what is not acceptable, and to shame anybody that would want anything other than the muted styles that were put forth. I personally remember talks at conventions about suits that were too brightly colored, or perhaps a more leisurely style. Those were shamed. I remember a sister giving a talk on the platform that was publicly shamed afterward because she wore a brooch that was too eye catching. I was a teenager with a little peach fuzz and had brothers that yank on it and tell me that I needed to shave. I had friends that were told that their hair was too long. Sisters were basically called sluts by members of the congregation if they were well endowed because their shirts were too tight. Of course, if they wore something too loose, then they would be counseled for being sloppy. Do you see the control here? There was no way to win through all of these things. Everything was open to be picked apart so that you knew you were wrong and they were right. And let's briefly touch on one last way that things that were normal and that mattered to us personally were used against us. Let's talk about sex. So, if you were in the LGBTQIA community in any way, you were unacceptable and you knew it. Point blank, you could never express yourself sexually. You were bad. You were wrong. You should feel ashamed of your desires and squash them down. One of my favorite plays in the world is the Book of Mormon. And if you've ever seen it, you know the song Turn It Off, right? Turn it off like a light switch. That, right? Take these thoughts that you have, take these feelings and crush them, right? In fact, in the song, there's a gay gentleman, he has these thoughts, but he just crushes them and magically they're gone, right? He's no longer gay. So there was a thought police that existed inside the organization. I mean, obviously, the elders, if they knew your thoughts, would police them, but you were also using that thing that was near and dear to you against yourself. You were taught to internalize this shame for who you were and for what you wanted. And obviously, if you were gay, anywhere in the LGBTQIA community, point blank, you were wrong and unacceptable. I mean, doesn't get much more personal than that, right? And they used that against you. But in general, how many times did you ever hear a sex positive talk in the congregation? Even for the heterosexual people that they claim to be acceptable and created by their God, Jehovah? I don't know about you, but I never did. All I heard was that sex was bad. It was dirty. It was a trap. It could cost you everything. It was shameful, whether solo or with another person. And frankly, one that would even look at another person with a sexual thought had already committed sin in their heart. There's also apparently something called the bloom of youth, a sexually charged time in your life. And it's not clearly defined, but if you are feeling sexually charged, you might still be in it and you should watch out. They taught us all to be afraid of our own bodies and other people's as well. Well, until your wedding night, when then you're supposed to make magic happen, of course, as long as you keep the marriage bed without defilements, as they let you know through scripture. This has real consequences. Extreme sexual repression can often create sexuality that expresses in extremes. Whether someone is unable to get past the shame of their own desires and they're shut down sexually, or whether that shame serves almost as addiction fuel and pushes people to become hypersexual at a level that could push them down an unsafe path. I won't get into details, but doing what I do as a cult recovery coach, I know that people are impacted at all ends of the spectrum at times because of that repression. Think about how many cults that you've heard of and how many of them control the sexuality of their members. Whether, like some cults, they remove their genitalia, to other cults where they all have orgies with the leader. If I'm a cult leader and I can control a natural biological urge in you, what can't I control? This being one of the more intimate and private aspects of an individual's life, it really highlights the depths to which the gaslighting can reach in both thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So let's talk about you. Where do you see yourself in this? What was shamed in you? Where were you separated from your own desires, from things that were near and dear to you? And who was doing this? Was it Jehovah's Witnesses in general? Was it mom? Was it dad? Was it maybe a sibling or aunt or uncle, other family member? Was it you? Is it still you today? Or is it still them if you have contact with Jehovah's Witnesses in some way? Maybe you find yourself judging others and repeating these methods of trying to enforce change upon them. It can really get in the way of our enjoyment of life. But we can also change these things by working with someone that can help push back and reframe and help us to do the same over time with repeated exposure. Again, healing is a process, not an event. And just as this messaging was drilled into us over and over and over again, we're going to have to fight back against it over and over and over again. But it does get easier with time, and it can become more natural as we learn to let go. If you're struggling to move past the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses and the impacts that it had on your life, I work with many individuals daily in my cult recovery coaching practice at exjwhelp.com. I'm also working hard to bring in new resources to the XJW community through efforts to lift individuals up financially, through job opportunities, help to market your own business ideas, and networking opportunities as well. You can go to theuprisingproject.com and read about our mission and how to join if you want to move forward with your own job prospects, your career, or maybe a small business. Next time, we're going to talk about a unique aspect of the truth that maybe you really haven't thought about much, but it's something that goes along with the gaslighting that we experienced and created a characteristic in many Jehovah's Witnesses that they don't think they possess. If you have an idea for something that you'd like to see discussed, go to shunpodcast.com and submit it through the contact page. So, until the next episode, love yourself and others, do no harm, and go be happy.